Sound check. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way, Yorkville. Apologize, we had a little technical mishap as far as getting our live stream to other platforms. So hopefully you can see me, guys. And if you are watching right now, we should be streaming to Facebook at Dr. Nathan Thompson, Facebook at the Wellness Way Yorkville, also on YouTube at Dr. Nathan Thompson. Also, I believe on the Rumble platform too, although I can't see comments or things like that. So if you're joining me right now, do me a favor, say hello. Let me know also where you are watching from. The title of tonight is all about the gallbladder. So it's help, I've lost my gallbladder. And I'm going to show you on this live broadcast why you lost your gallbladder. But if you did, some of the things you got to really, really pay attention to, and I'll explain to you why. So again, guys, if you're watching this broadcast live, or if you're watching a replay, just go ahead and say hello. Let me know that you're watching the replay as well. But I'm going to go over a lot of stuff in regards to the gallbladder and how all of this starts to work together. So guys, again, say hello. Let me know if you can hear me as well. Just because it's inauguration day, and I imagine there's probably a lot of internet outages and things like that. So help, I lost my gallbladder. So who needs to hear this? Well, if you currently have dry, itchy skin, bloating, if you look at your stool and there's a lot of fat in the stools, which means it floats versus sinks. If you got constipation, diarrhea, or it alternates between the two, poor night vision, poor energy, fatigue, low immune system function, guys, all of these are really some symptoms that can in fact take place after you get your gallbladder removed. But really what they are is they're just a lot of symptoms of having poor absorption as a result of getting your gallbladder out. And I'll explain to you why here in just a second. So if you experiencing those things, then make sure that you watch this all the way through and make sure that you pay attention, especially guys, if you have gotten your gallbladder out, which actually leads me to this. Now you can listen to everything, but testing is going to be so much more important. So if you have lost your gallbladder and you're like, gosh, I just was kind of left up in the air as far as what I need to be doing, make sure that you get to our next inflammation event. Guys, specifically, this is for people who are in the Chicagoland area. Our next one is going to be Tuesday, February 4th, 6 o'clock p.m. This is an in-person event, which means that you're going to need to be from the Chicagoland area. No, I'm not currently working remotely only because we have that filled up. But if you're from the Chicagoland area and you want to work with us, you're having, issues with inflammation that's leading to all the symptoms that I described to you before, but also weight loss resistance, cancer, infertility, hormone issues, thyroid disease, chronic joint pain, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune hormone issues. The biggest thing that I will tell you is there's an underlying factor that all plays a role in this. And yes, it is in fact the inflammation, but the problem is people don't know what it is. They don't know where it's coming from. And this will help kind of bridge the gap as far as what you need to be doing in order for you to be able to achieve health restoration. Okay. So make sure you get registered for that. Very easy. If you're from the Chicagoland area, just click on our link tree. You'll see that on all our socials. And when you click on that, it will take you there. And you'll see one of the first things that pop up is the inflammation event. Just click on that link right there. and then they'll take you to Eventbrite, and you should be able to register for that in about 60 seconds or so. Once you get registered for it, pay attention. When you get closer to the date, my staff will reach out to you to confirm your attendance at that event so that they know exactly how many people to expect at that event. And it's a great experience because we have a gift for you too at the end. So make sure that you get registered for it, especially if you in fact have had your gallbladder out, because I can give you some direction as far as where you need to go. Okay. In addition to that, um, all right. So within the wellness way, I love that we have the pulse of what's going on, and the wellness way is gonna be getting into, doing some things in regards to skincare. Now, people ask me all the time, "What do you put on your skin?" I'm like, not that much. I don't have a skincare routine. However, we started carrying tallow balm in the office, and literally, like within 2 hours, completely sold out. And so, but you can get this from the Wellness Way store. So, do I recommend it? Well, here's the thing. I recommend it for people who are having some issues with their skin, which really means that it's an inside job. There's a problem happening on the inside because you know how they say your skin is a reflection of what's happening on the inside. But it doesn't negate the fact that your skin is a large organ. You should be nourishing your skin. And so, this is actually comes from grass-fed beef tallow, which can actually nourish the skin because beef tallow is high in vitamin A, vitamin D, a lot of your fat soluble vitamins. Vitamin A is very important for the skin as well. And there's nothing that's unnatural that can cause issues that are going to be soaking through the skin when you put them on. So there's no toxins, there's no parabens. There's nothing that's in there. This is just a great natural product to help feed and help to nourish the skin, and which is why, yes, I actually recommend it. But one of the most important things is that if you're talking about good skin and looking younger, then it really is. There's a lot more than just what you put on your skin. But is this a good product? Absolutely, that it is. And in fact, I'm going to be recommending it for someone who's coming in who's got a real big problem with eczema. And one of the reasons was this can start to nourish the skin. This can help the skin to start to repair while they start fixing it from the inside, especially. So all you have to do is if you just go to our link tree, you'll see the Wellness Way store there, and you'll be able to get your beef tallow or your tallow balm delivered straight to your door. Just make sure that when you go there, you just put in the code 5058. That lets you get that. And then that also says that Dr. Thompson recommended that for you. So really, really good product. You'll see some other great skincare type of things that'll be coming out over the next couple of months. But if there's a need, then yes, we are going to be able to provide that need. So really, really important for the skin, especially if you're having a lot of skin issues. Help to nourish the skin while you correct the underlying causes as far as why they're happening at a much deeper level. That's why I always say if you want better skin, fix the inside out rather than just only focusing from the outside in. Okay. So let's talk about the gallbladder. All right. Let's talk about the gallbladder. Here's something that's interesting is I had a gentleman who came to see me. Great guy, great husband, great wife, drove an hour and a half, up here to be here. And I looked at his FAQ, and this is something that we have everybody fill out a functional assessment questionnaire to look at really what's going on as far as what's the most important thing to them, but also what's happening to organ function and things like that. And I looked at this right on the first page, and here's a gentleman who's coming in who's got restless leg syndrome, cholesterol issues, terrible problems with anxiety. And then I wrote in the fourth thing, erectile dysfunction, only because he didn't want to tell me that. And in fact, the number of men who want to tell me that they're suffering with erectile dysfunction is actually zero. But you know who tells me? Their wife. So I only was able to glean that information after talking to him and talking to his wife, because no man wants to actually admit to that. Or, I say, how many men admit to having low testosterone? Zero. How many wives ask about it? Pretty much all of them. So when I looked at those things that were going on, I started looking a little bit deeper. I'm like, now let's ask him a couple of questions to see what was going on. So when I was asking this question, I asked him this: when did the problem start? And he's like, well, about 20 years ago. And then I said, what happened 20 years ago? And then he kind of looked over at his wife And his wife looked at him. She's like, I know what happened. He's like, he had his gallbladder out 20 years ago. And that started the process of a lot of things starting to go wrong inside of his body. But I'm going to explain to you why. And the reason why we start looking at things deeper, and the reason why there's not just one cause of why people start to get sick, is because of this whole thing called the Swiss watch, how we look at things called the Swiss watch formula. So if you look at the Swiss watch, you have to understand that the body works together and all those gears are turning and all those organ systems are turning. And that if you start to have a problem with one organ system, how it can start to affect all the other organ systems. This is what just drives me crazy with medicine, is that they always think it's just some kind of linear approach, that there's just one thing, that's going on. That's why you have a skin issue. They only look at the skin. They're not looking for other factors that are involved with this. This is why, too, I have a lot of problem with people in natural healthcare, because all they're talking about, they're just looking for deficiencies, but not trying to figure out why there's a deficiency, or they're just looking at one thing. And if we just dump a bunch of nutrients in, then that's going to take care of all the problems. We know that that's not simply not true. It's not the case. So even if you look at him getting the gallbladder out, how that started to change his digestive system. So it started to change his hormones. And the reason why is because you get the gallbladder out, it's just going to start to change how you're able to start absorbing fats, which is very, very important, especially when we're talking about building a hormone response that requires fat. You start to see that it can start to change your skin, because it starts to change the way that you are absorbing certain fat-soluble vitamins that's needed for good skin health and good immune function, vitamins A, D, E, and K. But you'll see how it can change the muscular system. And that's why I will say, it's like, yeah, you can change your blood pressure by smashing your big toe. So yes, your big toe indirectly can affect your heart function. So that's why you have to start looking at things deeper, and not just one thing, one magical supplement's going to fix everything. And it really is not. That's why you have to look at chemical, mental, and physical stressors. Why, guys? That is so, so important. But I'll show you, as you start to look at this at a little bit deeper level, why just by altering and changing that digestive system, while this will start to change skin, the muscular system, it can even change their respiratory system. I've seen people with very high inflammatory issues within the gastrointestinal system, and how it can cause an immune response, cause an asthma response, and how the digestive system can affect your skin so much. I mean, you start cleaning up what's happening in the digestive system, and you will see skin improve. And the reason why is because large part of your immune system sits around the gastrointestinal system, because it's a barrier, which also means that a large part of your immune system is also sitting underneath the skin, because that's also a barrier. And so if you calm the alarm down on one barrier, you'll start calming the alarm down on other barrier as well. But you got to understand, it's not just a linear approach when it comes to helping a person get better. So I lost my gallbladder. Okay. Now I'm going to talk a lot about the gallbladder. In fact, if you watch this all the way through, you're going to realize that even getting the gallbladder out will change what happens in the gastrointestinal system so much that it puts people at a higher risk for colorectal cancer. Who says so? They do. Now, I want to preface by saying this is, are there people who need their gallbladder removed? And the answer is yes. Their gallbladder might become so sick, so diseased, that really the only thing you can do is just to actually remove it. But however, here's one of the things I want to ask you. When you got your gallbladder removed, did your doctor discuss why you got your gallbladder removed, why the gallbladder got sick and diseased, and did they give you any guidance as to what you should be doing afterwards? And chances are, when I ask people, they're like, nope, didn't tell me anything, nothing that went on. And then they start getting a little bit angry. I say, hey, look, medical doctors do a wonderful job of putting out fires, but they're not carpenters. So you can't be angry at the fire department for putting out a fire, AKA getting your gallbladder out, and not rebuilding the body afterwards, or doing something that takes a little bit of a carpenter approach. So I will say this, even if you got your gallbladder out, they didn't give you any direction, don't expect the fire department to do a carpenter's job. That's why I will say, if you need the fire department is going to do a great job, but then don't go back and ask the fire department to do the job of the carpenter to rebuild and repair your house. That's why I always tell people, if you're driving home and you're having a heart attack, please don't call me up and ask me to adjust you or to give you some kind of magical herb. What you need to do is you need to go to the fire department so that they can save your life. Just so happens, though, that a lot of what they're going to do afterwards is just not getting into why it happened and not rebuilding the body. And that's one of the challenges in healthcare today, because so many doctors brag, yeah, we're living longer than ever before. I'm like, yeah, we are living longer than ever before, but we're just live longer being chronically ill. And that's because you can't just keep putting out fires and expect yourself to go back to normal if you never get to the reason why you had that fire in the first place. So don't expect the fire department to do a carpenter's job. What we do, that's the carpenter's job. And that's why you need to work on rebuilding and restoring, especially after you have some kind of fire. So let's get into the gallbladder, or if you have the gallbladder out. Now, let's go to the National Library of Medicine, the National Institutes of Health, and here's what they say. This is amazing how many people have gallbladder issues. Approximately 20 million people in the United States have gallstones. Of those people, there are approximately 300,000 cholecystectomies, or also known as gallbladder removals, that are performed annually. 300,000. 10% to 15% of the population has asymptomatic gallstones. Of these, 20% are symptomatic. The incidence of gallstone increases with an increase in age, with females being more likely to form gallstones than males. So I will tell you this: if you are getting 300,000 of these surgeries every single year, we should be actually talking about how to keep your gallbladder and how to have good gallbladder health, especially because this right here, gallbladder removal, one of the most common surgeries that you're going to see here in the United States. And just like I said before, yes, some people need to get their gallbladder out because it gets so sick, so diseased, and not getting it out will cause a lot of issues. However, I would be more interested in trying to figure out the reasons why you got it out. And if you got it out, trying to fix what's going to happen as a result of getting your gallbladder out, because there will be some side effects down the road. But one of the things we got to figure out is, what does the gallbladder do? What does the gallbladder do? Now, I will say this: there are no unnecessary organs, or there's no organs that you like, oh, I don't really need it. Just because science doesn't quite understand why, why someone, has a gallbladder. They understand why people have a gallbladder, but if they don't understand the function of certain organs, and they're like, well, I guess you just don't really need it. Every organ in your body you absolutely do need. But one of the things you need to do is you need to understand, what does the gallbladder do? What does the gallbladder do? Well, I will say this, is that the gallbladder essentially is a holding tank for bile that's made by your liver. But not only that, the gallbladder is also a sensory organ. The reason why I say that is because the gallbladder knows exactly how much bile to squeeze out depending on what's coming down the pike as far as what you're eating, which means if I eat a very high fatty meal, the gallbladder knows I'm going to need to squeeze a little bit more. I'm going to need to let out a little bit more bile in order to help me break down my fats, emulsify the fats, shuttle the fats through the gastrointestinal system, through the small intestine, and also to be able to absorb some of your fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, which leads me to this. Well, what does bile do? Bile is what's stored by your gallbladder, and it's made by the liver. Just remember this: if you get your gallbladder out, your liver's still going to make bile. But bile is what's released when you eat in order to help you break down and help you absorb your fats. And it's helping with nutrient absorption, especially when you're talking about fats, and when you're also talking about the absorption of some of your vitamins like A, D, E, and K, which are fat soluble, and they can be stored within the body. And that's why I see so many people who get their gallbladder out and they become extremely vitamin D deficient. You may also start because you don't absorb fats very well. You're going to get very dry, itchy skin as well. So there's a purpose of bile. But I would say this: bile can be some very, very nasty stuff. And the reason why is because you'll have a lot of your detox products within the bile. And in fact, when we talk about detoxification, a lot of it's in the bile, and then your liver removes it, gets shuttled to the gallbladder with bile, and then the bile is released within the gastrointestinal system. And that's how you get rid of some of your hormones. That's how you get how the liver detoxes, and it's going to be in bile. So that's why if you get your gallbladder out, you will still make bile, but the problem is now you don't have the sensory organ, or you have the holding tank, in order to secrete exactly the right amount of bile in order to be able to break down your fats. And instead, what it does is it just slowly just kind of drips within the gastrointestinal system, which can cause a lot of problems, especially. Now, here's a Swiss watch fact, and this comes from Guyton and Hall's Textbook of Medical Physiology, the 13th edition, the latest edition. And I love how this says in the book. This is one of the books that we learned physiology from in chiropractic school. But what's so interesting, it's the same book. It's a medical textbook of physiology. Here's what they say. Bile secretion from the gallbladder is dependent on stomach acid. So how much bile you secrete from your gallbladder is dependent on stomach acid, which is why if you're running in a low stomach acid type of situation, it slows down the movement of food. And if it slows down the movement of food, from the stomach to the duodenum and then into the small intestine, one of the things that's going to happen is it's going to slow down the contraction of the gallbladder. And you want bile to be moving, because if it doesn't move, it can actually start to precipitate into stones. And that's when you start to have gallstones. This is why stomach acid is so important when it comes to maintaining a healthy gallbladder, especially. But pay attention to this, because when I go over some common drugs that people think are the blockbusters of why it can cause some gallbladder issues, you'll understand exactly why. This is why, guys, stomach acid is so important. Stomach acid is so important, but you know what actually decreases stomach acid? Being stressed. Being stressed is what will lower down stomach acid, because fight or flight lowers down digestion, gut motility. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. So who loses their gallbladder? Who loses their gallbladder? Well, when I was in chiropractic school, we needed to learn this, and we reviewed this many times, especially when we were prior to taking our boards. And what they told us is just remember the 5 Fs: female, fair complected, fat, fertile, and 40 or older. And generally, this is true. Are there outliers? Yes, of course, there's going to be outliers. But you have to understand is who's most likely to have gallbladder disease, to get their gallbladder removed. Number one, females. Twice as many females have gallbladder issues than males. When I say fair complected, we're talking about women with fair complexion. So we're talking about more common in white women than it is in African American women. Number three, fat. So if you are carrying extra body fat, or you are overweight, much more likely to get your gallbladder out. And also, it's much more likely, if a woman is 40 or older and still cycling, still having a menstrual cycle, and this has to do with estrogens. So it has to do with estrogens. Notice that's plural, and that's not because there's no such thing as a hormone known as estrogen. Estrogens are the family of hormones. But here's what's so interesting. If you're on an estrogen-based birth control, they have also discovered that, yep, you're a lot more likely to get your gallbladder out or have gallbladder disease. So female, fair complected, fat, fertile, 40 or older. But I added this one in too, because a lot of people don't realize this. But if you are sitting and just marinating in mold mycotoxins, there's mycotoxicity that's going on. This is something that will dramatically cause gallbladder issues. Okay, it will cause some kind of gallbladder issues, because mold mycotoxins actually will affect bile release, especially. So all these things are very, very important. But here's what's interesting. Well, what's the difference between men and women? And it has to do with estrogens. It has to do with estrogens. And this is why, if you look at women, this is why women have a lot more hormone to metabolize, especially when you're talking about estrogen. So they have to go to the liver and they have to be converted down and then released from the body through bile and through the gastrointestinal system. However, if you start decreasing your liver function, then you're also going to have a big problem when it comes to the gallbladder as well. And this is why carrying extra body fat or having a fatty liver, why this can be so damaging, especially when you talk about losing your gallbladder too. Now, here's something that I want to talk about as well. And pay attention to this, because I did a live video on this about a year ago, and I'll show you where you can find it. But you look at a lot of these, women especially, and they want to be on Ozempic. And in fact, I had a woman, she was not very old, terrible bloating, terrible amounts of stress. And she was gaining weight very quickly. She's like, my last resort is to go on Ozempic. And I'm like, if you already have gastrointestinal issues, high amount of stress, I'm like, it's going to tear your gallbladder apart. But there's a lot of lawsuits now that are actually going after the manufacturers of Ozempic. And the reason why is a lot of people take this in order to quote unquote lose weight. And here's what they say: Ozempic, an injectable medication that's also sold under the names Wegovy and Rybelsus, because of one of its side effects, help people to lose weight. These are actually GLP-1 agonists, and they would use them originally as type 2 diabetes medication. Then they realized, oh, wow, people can actually lose weight being on it. Then they started using it as a weight loss medication. The brand name for the chemical compound semaglutide, known as Ozempic, has also been used by some to achieve weight loss. Unfortunately, new reports reveal some Ozempic users experiencing severe gallbladder issues after receiving the drug. The makers of Ozempic have been accused of failing to provide an accurate warning label for the product. And one of the reasons why, remember how I said Swiss Watch says that you need adequate amounts of stomach acid? Well, one of the things that these GLP-1 agonists, what they do is they delay gastric emptying. They delay stomach emptying in order to make you feel fuller for a longer period of time. And so they induce a medical condition known as gastroparesis, which will slow down the movement of food out of the stomach. And that's one of the things, especially as you start losing a lot of weight, which is going to inhibit the gallbladder from being able to contract, and this can cause gallstones especially. Now, there's a lot of lawsuits in regards to that. And it's not just the gallbladder. Now there's some Danish studies that are saying that, yes, Ozempic finds a higher risk of optic nerve damage, okay? And people want to call them side effects. It's not a side effect. It's an effect. I love how they say, oh, here's some of the side effects. I'm like, no, these are the effects. They just don't want them to happen. So then they label them as some kind of side effect. But now they're saying not only is it causing gallbladder issues, but it's also causing issues with optic nerve damage with Ozempic. Okay. Here's a question I want to ask. If a drug is anticipated to become a cash cow, will the pharmaceutical companies withhold the known side effects? Well, what do you think? And you're seeing that some of these drugs are just becoming cash cows, and they have withheld some of the things that they know are going to be side effects without adequately warning the patients. Now, let me give you an example. Will they withhold the side effects? The answer is yes, they will. Absolutely. Why I know this is because they have a history. The pharmaceutical companies have a history of doing this. If you look at some of these arthritis medications that were very popular, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, Vioxx, Bextra, Celebrex, these were considered miracle arthritis medications, and people were taking this they were being prescribed hand over fist, for people. But the problem is Vioxx, Bextra, and Celebrex have all been taken off the market, and the reason why is because of the increased risk of heart attack, stroke, and death. Literally hundreds of thousands of people have died from taking these medications. The only problem is the manufacturers of these. One of them was Pfizer, Merck, another pharmaceutical company. They actually knew in advance that it would cause a certain number of injury and certain number of deaths, and they did it anyway. So here's from the New York Times. Pfizer pays $2.3 billion to settle their marketing case. So Pfizer agreed to pay $2.3 billion to settle civil and criminal allegations that it had illegally marketed its painkiller Bextra, which has been withdrawn. Okay. Now, here's what's interesting is that this was done in 2009. So this was an article in 2009, but here's what they said at the end. It was Pfizer's fourth settlement over illegal marketing activities since 2002. So over the span of 7 years, Pfizer had 4 lawsuits for illegal marketing. Isn't that amazing? Now, here's the question. This will probably get me banned on YouTube, but I don't care because people need to hear this. If they're willing to lie about Vioxx, Bextra, and Celebrex, are they willing to lie about Ozempic? Are they willing to also lie about certain vaccines? And the answer is, you bet your bippy they're going to. Pfizer is a habitual offender when it comes to illegal marketing. And this is why just over the course of 7 years, they had 4 penalties, and they have actually paid out billions upon billions of dollars. You know what really starts to rile me up is when people die as a result of them lying about some of the side effects of some of the medication. I'm sorry for saying this, but I'm not, because it's going to get your attention. This is what is bullshit about the United States. Because what they can do is they can give the medication that can kill your mother, can kill your father. They know that, and they know the cost of doing business is just to pay a fine from the profits of the medications. And that's just considered the cost of doing business. And that's what they knew. They knew, well, we're gonna get some kind of fine, but we're gonna make way more than what we're gonna get fined with, and they still come out ahead as a result. This is why they've done in the past, and they'll do it again. And in fact, they're actually doing it right now when it comes to some of these weight loss medications. Now, Novo Nordisk agrees to pay a $58 million fine for failure to comply with FDA mandated risk program. Novo Nordisk, this was back in 2017, and this is the manufacturer of Ozempic. So pharmaceutical manufacturer Novo Nordisk will pay $58 million to resolve allegations that the company failed to comply with the FDA mandated risk evaluation and mitigation strategy for its type 2 diabetes medication known as Victoza. The resolution includes disgorgement of $12.5 million for alleged violations of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act from 2010 to 2012, and a payment of $46 million for alleged violations of the False Claims Act from 2010 to 2014. So here's the manufacturer, for Ozempic, who has paid enormous fines in the past, yet we somehow think that everything that they're doing is completely on the up and up, okay? Have you more faith in some of these organizations that have paid billions in fines than actually how the body was actually created, okay? And I talk about this a little bit more, and I did a live video probably about a year ago, and you know what? I was right. What about these new weight loss drugs? So you'll be able to find this on YouTube, just as long as YouTube doesn't scramble and try to delete the video. But one of the things that you can do is, if you go to our YouTube page, you'll be able to find that on our socials if you go to Linktree. And if you click on live, you'll be able to find that video, and you'll be able to rewatch that, because I talk a lot about some of these new weight loss, quote unquote, weight loss medications. And the skinny of it, that's just a bad play on words, is that it forces you to eat less. Just like gastric bypass surgery forces you to eat less. The problem is it's a medication for life. And it's also a very expensive medication that you're going to take for life, especially. So who loses their gallbladder? Think of female, fair complexion, fat, fertile, 40-older. And also I added in mold mycotoxicity, which this can be a player when it comes to that as well. That's why with a lot of people with mold mycotoxicity, we will actually put them on ox bile, and just to make sure that their stomach is moving, that their gallbladder is contracting as much as possible, to keep the foods moving through, and to keep the liver constantly making bile, the gallbladder contracting, to be able to prevent stones and things like that. But one of the biggest reasons why someone will lose their gallbladder, for 2 big reasons. Number 1, fatty liver, which a lot of people have. And number 2, gallbladder stasis, which means things aren't moving out of the gallbladder. And this has everything to do with stress, stomach acid, and things like that, okay? So what are some of the symptoms after getting gallbladder removal? Well, here's some things that you can experience. You can experience diarrhea, loose stool. Sometimes they'll call it dumping syndrome. And one of the biggest things is that you consume a large amount of fat. You don't have enough bile to be able to absorb that. So the body just says, get rid of this fat as quickly as possible. You can develop dry skin, and this is because you don't absorb your fats in the same fashion than you used to. You can develop A, D, E, and K deficiency. Guys, when I look at a woman who she's gotten her gallbladder out, I'm always testing for vitamin D, and many times I see her vitamin D levels absolutely in the tank, which will play a large role in the adaptive immune system, especially. You can also see what's known as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And that's not because you caught it. That's because you changed the environment so much that now you can start to see bacteria, instead of staying in the colon, they can start to crawl into the small intestines and that will present its own problems as well. Here's a stool test of someone who lost their gallbladder. This is why I think it's so important. If you've had your gallbladder out, you really need to be looking at your stool test, which is a functional stool test, which is basically looking at your digestive system from the north end all the way down to the south end just to see how things are working. So this woman had gotten her gallbladder out. And if you look at on the left, this was pre. And one of the things you'll notice is she's got a high amount of fecal fat in her stool, which means she's not absorbing it. High amount of inflammation around the gastrointestinal barrier, dysbiosis or abnormal bacteria that are growing within the intestines. And then when you look at this, this is 6 months later, and we're not trying to get a perfect stool. And one of the challenges is you get your gallbladder out. I don't know exactly how much bile you're supposed to consume. But if you see this, you'll actually will see no more fecal fat within her stool, which means she's absorbing a lot better. You saw inflammation go down, dysbiosis or abnormal bacteria start to go way down. This was a lot better stool test over 6 months, and you can just see that the inflammation went down, absorption went down. So a lot of those things got better, but she had to change her diet. She had to go on some things, had to kill off some pathogens, had to make sure she was taking ox bile at every single meal. And this is why it can be so difficult, because once you lose the gallbladder, you lose that sensory organ that knows exactly how much bile to secrete. And that's why if you're taking like ox bile or something like that, you may take a little bit, but it may not be enough. If you have a high fatty meal, you probably need to take a little bit more, but it's just kind of a guesstimate as far as what you should be doing or how much you should be taking. Now, here's one of the biggest things. If you've lost your gallbladder, did your doctor tell you to go on pancreatic enzymes and or a bile acid supplement? Did they ever tell you that you need to go on that? And I've asked people repeatedly, and they say they didn't give me any kind of direction. Well, then I'm like, well, don't be mad, because they're firemen, they're not carpenters, and that's actually just not their job. Their job is to take out the gallbladder. Their job is not to support you afterwards. That's not the job of the medical doctor. It's just not their job. However, any doctors who is actually looking at physiology probably should tell you, you need to go on some kind of bile acid replacement. And I'm going to explain to you why with this, okay? Now, many doctors just say, I'll just get it out and everything will be just fine. But we know now that everything is not fine once you get the gallbladder out. This actually comes from 2018, and here's what it says. This is, by the way, scientific literature, peer-reviewed journal. Cholecystectomy, or removal of the colon or removal of the gallbladder, damages aging-associated intestinal microbiota construction. So it changes the microbiome. Here's what they say. The intestinal microbiome is essential in humans to maintain physiological balance and nutritional metabolism. That's true. Laparoscopic cholecystectomy, or laparoscopic, in which they're, instead of doing a complete open procedure, they're just going in, using a camera, and it helps not to have to open up the whole entire stomach to remove the gallbladder. Cholecystectomy due to gallstone disease and cholecystitis, or inflammation of the gallbladder, can cause intestinal microbial dysbiosis and following bile acid metabolism dysfunction. So getting it out will cause bile acid metabolism dysfunction, and it positions the patient at high risk of colorectal cancer. Okay. We identified aging-associated fecal microbiota in a healthy population, which was lost in cholecystectomy patients, or patients who had lost their gallbladder. Absent intestinal bacteria, such as bacteroids, were negatively related to secondary bile acids, may be a leading cause of colorectal cancer incidence in cholecystectomy patients. The reason why is you lose the gallbladder, you lose the environment to have a healthy microbiome. So cholecystectomy, or removal of the gallbladder, promotes the development of colorectal cancer by the alteration of bile acid metabolism and the gut microbiota, or the gut microbiome. So cholecystectomy is a gold standard procedure for treating systematic gallbladder issues and gallbladder disease. The rhythm of bile acids entering the intestine is altered after removal of the gallbladder, which leads to metabolic disorders. Nonetheless, emerging evidence suggests that removal of the gallbladder might be associated with the development of colorectal cancer. It has been reported that alterations in bile acid metabolism and gut microbiota are the two main reasons. So one of the things that you have to understand is people say, do I need to take a probiotic? Do I need to take a probiotic? And I'm like, well, what's more linked is the environment that you are putting it under. And that's why people say, do I need to be in a probiotic? I'm like, change the environment first. Then you can worry about adding that later. Because everybody asks about probiotics. What's your take on probiotics? And here's what I say. Probiotics will thrive, or they'll take, if you have an environment for them to be able to live and to be able to grow. That's why it needs proper stomach acid, proper digestive enzymes, proper bile acids, proper fiber. And one of the most important things is you need low inflammation. People ask me all the time about, probiotics, and I'm looking at them and I'm saying, well, let me ask you a question. If you had a bare spot on your lawn and you said, I'm going to go to Home Depot, I'm going to go to Menards, and I'm going to buy the very best grass seed. I mean, the best grass seed. Like, give me the best grass seed that you have. They give you the premier grass seed, the best grass seed that money can buy. And then you go home and you proceed to plant it on the sidewalk or you plant it in your driveway. Doesn't matter at that point what kind of grass seed it is, because there's not a good environment for it to be able to live. It doesn't have soil. It is not going to establish a root system. It may, find a crack and pop up, and then it's quickly just going to die. And that's why when you talk about gastrointestinal health, this is why stomach acid, digestive enzymes, bile, good fiber, having a low inflammatory environment, all those things are basically what can water the microbiome and allow those things to be able to thrive. But the problem is that if you've lost your gallbladder and you're not doing anything in order to replace that, then what happens is it will start to change the microbiome, because other things will have an easier time of living, and some of the beneficial bacteria will have a lot harder time starting to live. I want you guys to understand this, is the gallbladder was just a symptom. The gallbladder was just the symptom. But what are you doing about the reasons why you lost it? What are you doing about the reasons why you lost it? You need to start going deeper and just saying, oh, I just got an organ cut out. But you need to start figuring out, well, why did it get sick? And why did I lose it? And maybe I should start working on some of those other things. But I will tell you this, there is no such thing as a magical, recently discovered, fix all my problems supplement. I'm sorry, there just isn't. Dr. Oz is responsible for a lot of people going in that direction. All right. God bless Dr. Oz, but he was wrong about a lot of things. And so many times people will come to me thinking, I'm just missing a supplement. I'm just missing one thing. And the reality is there is no secret supplement coming out of the rainforest of Amazon that's going to fix all your problems. People will ask me all the time, and I'm like, guys, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. What it takes is creating the right environment. What it takes is being in rest and digest. What it takes is making sure that you are correcting the physical, mental, chemical stressors that are going on, and then supporting that with good lifestyle. And then supplements are there just to help buy time until the reasons why you got in that situation have actually been corrected. Okay. So here's a final thought. You can cut out the tongue of a baby to get them to stop crying, but it doesn't address the reason why they were crying in the first place. And this is what is so interesting, because if someone comes to me and they have an autoimmune disease and you just look at them and they're like, you're going to go on things to help cut out the immune system, to help suppress the immune system. Basically, guys, that's all they're doing, is they're not getting to the reason why the baby's crying in the first place. So rather than cut the tongue out of the baby, maybe you should address the reason why the baby is crying in the first place. Just cutting out the tongue, yes, it will get the baby to stop crying, but the reason why they were crying in the first place is still going to be there. And that's why you have to start looking a lot deeper. So if you've had your gallbladder out, or maybe you're having a lot of those symptoms that are going on, here's what I want you to do. Number one, please work with a Wellness Way doctor and get the appropriate testing. Okay. Quit trying to do it on your own. And I will tell you this, is that if you're trying to go from Chicago to Los Angeles, and someone says, here's a roadmap, you're like, no, I'm going to do it on my own. I'm like, well, why are you doing it on your own? Is that an ego thing? Because if you had a roadmap to get you from point A to point B, working with the Wellness Way doctor and testing is one of the most important things that you can do. If you've gotten your gallbladder out, then yes, you are missing an organ. And in fact, the joke I always say is, people are like, oh, how long do I need to be on, ox bile or bile acid replacement? I'm like, well, have you grown a new gallbladder back? They're like, nope. And I'm like, then for the rest of your life, but you need to be on some sort of bile acid replacement. Pancreatic enzymes, yes, they can help as well. But also making sure that you're getting your stomach, you're getting it properly acidified, and to help you break down your proteins and things like that. This is very, very important. So maybe apple cider vinegar, betaine hydrochloric acid with meals. And a lot of people are very deficient in stomach acid, and it just has to do with being in fight or flight. If you want a lot of gastrointestinal system, be chronically stressed, and you will see that your digestive system is one of the things that's going to start to suffer. And then two, if you've gotten your gallbladder out, you really do need to address the liver, whether there's some kind of fatty liver issue that's going on, maybe an issue with estrogen metabolism. So why if you do have a fatty liver, man, menopause is going to give you a really bad day. It really will, because of how you start metabolizing your estrogens and things like that. And can it even affect the thyroid? Yes, it absolutely can, because the liver gastrointestinal system is one of the biggest converters of T4 into T3, which is what your cells are actually using. Active T3, that's what your cells are using. That's setting the metabolism of those cells. Sometimes people think they have a thyroid problem. In reality, they don't have a problem with production as much as they have a problem with conversion of T4 into T3. And this is why you need a healthy liver and healthy gastrointestinal system. And that's why you really need to start looking a little bit deeper in regards to that. The last thing I will say is this too, is lower your stressors down, get adjusted. This is, guys, why it's so important, because I remember back in the day before I was doing any of this, I had people, just by adjusting them, whose blood sugars went down to normal, whose acid reflux went away. They might have gotten even pregnant, and they thought, oh my gosh, getting adjusted. I guess everyone can get pregnant if you get adjusted. But the reality is everybody's got different stressors that are going on. So when I say lower stressors, when people say, how do you get people better? I'm like, get rid of as many stressors out of your bucket and give your body ability to be able to recover and to be able to relax. Because the more that your body is in a state of relaxation, the more you start going into rest and digest versus being into fight or flight. Now, is fight or flight a bad thing? Nope, it's not a bad thing at all. If you have a bear chasing you, it's a really, really good thing, but it becomes a problem when the bear never, ever stops chasing you. And what puts you into fight or flight? Having structural issues in the spine that's affecting the nerve system. But here's what's so interesting. If you're in chronic fight or flight, look at what it does. It inhibits the activity of the stomach, puts you in lower stomach acid. It will cause the stomach not to be able to empty as quickly as possible, which can cause a lot of gallbladder stasis. Being in fight or flight will also inhibit the gallbladder. So it inhibits the contraction of the gallbladder, but it also stimulates the release of glucose. And that's why if you want better blood sugar control as well, get yourself out of fight or flight. You need to be into rest and digest, because what does it do? This is why you should always be eating in rest and digest, okay? It stimulates the gallbladder, stimulates the activity of the intestines. That's why they call it rest and digest. So anything that gets you into rest and digest is going to benefit the gastrointestinal system, is going to benefit and have better gallbladder function as well. And I think one of the most powerful, one of the most direct ways, if you have an X-ray and you have issues that are taking place, getting that corrected is very, very important in order to help put you into rest and digest. One of the biggest changes I'll see in people, especially when they're getting adjusted, is start seeing better gastrointestinal function, especially. And I'll give you actually a clinical example, and this happened today. But I had an individual who came in with a lot of gastrointestinal issues, a lot of bloating and things like that. And he was getting so much better, then decided, I'm going to stop getting adjusted. came into the next month, wasn't doing any of his homework or anything. He's like, nothing changed. What do I need to do? And I'm like, you already know what you need to do. You need to make sure that you're getting out of fight or flight into rest and digest. And one of the biggest things to get you into rest and digest is making sure that you're taking care of your spine, taking care of your nerve system. It's very, very important. And that's why lowering down stressors can be so important. So I talked a little bit about gallbladder complex. If you've had that out, you need to be on that because you don't have the ability to be able to concentrate, be able to store bile. Where can you get that? Well, if you go to our link tree, you'll be able to see the Wellness Way store. So you go ahead and click on that. You'll need to create an account and then enter 5058 at checkout. That will just authorize you to be able to get those things. But if you don't have your gallbladder, one of the first things you should be doing is to get on some gallbladder complex. And what is it? It's ox bile. And that will help you to break down and emulsify your fats. And then I talked about tallow balm too. So if you've gotten your gallbladder out, then chances are you'll probably see some changes take place in through the skin. But this is something to help nourish the skin, help to moisturize the skin, especially. And it's very good because there's no additives, there's no parabens in it, things that can seep through the skin and mimic estrogens in the body. So you can go ahead right there and get those things right away. In addition to that, remember Tuesday, February 4th, 6:00 p.m. If you're from the Chicagoland area, please make sure that you come to the inflammation event. This is an in-person event. Inflammation is one of the first things that you have to address. Remember this, things don't heal if you stay inflamed. That's why you have to look at mental stress, structural issues. You have to look at inflammation. And think of this, a scab's never going to heal if you keep injuring it. It's never, ever going to heal. And that's why you have to figure out, what am I doing to cause an injury that would activate my immune system to become very, very inflamed? And this is why inflammation has a huge role when you talk about weight loss, has a huge role when you're talking about cancer, infertility, thyroid disease, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity, hormone imbalance. And people say, balance my hormones, balance my hormones, balance my hormones. I'm like, you need to address inflammation first and foremost. So make sure, if you're in that situation, then please don't delay. Make sure you get registered for that event coming up Tuesday, February 4th. And I can't wait to see you at that event. All you have to do is just click on the link tree. You'll be able to get registered for that event right here. And it's free to attend. It's free to attend. So help, I lost my gallbladder. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of direction as far as what you need to do. You need to be on a bile acid replacement. Probably need to be working with a Wellness Way doctor in order to get the appropriate testing. Probably getting some food allergies, probably a stool test. Very common that those are some of the first testing that you need to start looking at as well. But if you've lost your gallbladder, just remember, start to change the whole microbiome further down. Yes, it is linked to an increased risk of colorectal cancer. And that's why getting an organ removed, you need to start doing the things necessary to create a good environment with what's happening downstream, especially. So if you've lost your gallbladder, yes, there are things that you can do, but you need to know where you're starting from. So get to the Inflammation Talk or reach out to the wellnessway.com and see if you can find a Wellness Way doctor, start working with them directly to help guide you and give you a roadmap as far as what you need to do in order to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. So if you've lost your gallbladder, make sure you watch this. You might have to go back and watch this again. I will be live next week, Lord willing. And if not, then one of the things I'll do is I'll do a question and answer live as well and answer your questions in regards to that. But go back and you go to the YouTube page and watch the whole thing that I talked about, Ozempic. Go back and watch that as well. And so guys, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please share this. Make sure you make sure you follow our page. Please share this with other people, because I know that what I went over can help them tremendously avoid a lot more pain, or a lot less pain, a lot less suffering down the road. So make sure that you do your part, not only watching this, but share this with other people. So guys, I will see you next week. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I love you. Take care of yourself. Take care of other people. And as I always say, remember who you are. I'll see you next week. Be well and blessed.